Hello everyone. Today we want to talk about the vestibular apparatus. So, the vestibular apparatus consisting of three semicircular canals and one saccule and one utricle having hair cells which are mechanoceptors. They are inside the petrous part of temporal bone in the inner ear region. So how they are located in space inside the skull is what we are going to look at initially. So, vestibular vestibular apparatus. So looking at the face laterally, it is seen that when the person is looking down, when the gaze of the person is looking a little down, about 20 degrees from the horizon, then the positions of the various semicircular canal and the utricle and the saccule can be drawn like this. At this position, here we have the cochlea. Then related to the cochlea, we have the saccule. Then we have the utricle. And because the person is looking a little down, 20 degrees from the horizon, here the horizontal canal is placed in a horizontal plane. The other two canals the anterior canal and the posterior canal are also visualized. Please note that the plane of the anterior canal and the posterior canal are 90 degrees, roughly, approximately 90 degrees from each other. Also, the horizontal canal is roughly 90 degrees from the two vertical canal, one being the anterior, the other being the posterior canal. So this is from the lateral aspect of the body. Now, if we look from above downward, so suppose this is the front of the face, this is the midline and the ears. So we see that the horizontal canals will be like this. The anterior canal is like this, and the posterior canal is having this orientation. Compared to the other structures, we see, for example, the cochlea here. The saccule and the utricle here. So on the other side also we have the anterior canal, the posterior canal oriented in this fashion, and the horizontal canal oriented in this fashion. So this orientation helps in the pickup of movement of this configuration. So anterior canal picks up movement which are not going straight forward but a little to the side, back and forth. The posterior canal picks up movement oriented like this, and obviously the horizontal canal will pick up movement of this variety from side to side. So a few axes of movement possible by the human head can be so the human head can either move this way, that is from back to front. This is through the axis going through the ear and coming out of the other. So this movement in this axis is known as the pitch. This movement going through the center of the top of the head is this movement with the axis here. So obviously this is like this or like this. This is known as the yaw. The axis of movement through the front of the face, coming out through the nose, going into the back of the head is a roll. So we generally move our head in a combination of all three, that is roll, pitch and yaw. The basic idea of the vestibular system is to give the feedback to the brain regarding the position of our head on our neck and then obviously on our trunk. This is important in order to stabilize gaze, either for fixation of gaze using VOR or optokinetic reflex, or to shift gaze using saccades, then smooth pursuit or vergence, as we were talking in the previous class. So stabilization of the platform on which the eyes are placed. So vestibular apparatus gives an idea how the head is located in the space and what is the orientation of the head relative to the neck and to the body and to the limbs, so that something can be focused upon and fine job can be done on it. Moreover, the two other constituents, the utricle and the saccule, are also getting signal from gravity. They are gravity sensor. And moreover, the utricle also senses translational movement forward and movement to the side. If my body is moving from side to side, it is usually picked up along with the other constituents, more particularly by the utricle. So, acceleration and deceleration of the car is picked up by utricle, along with the other components of the vestibular apparatus. Up, down, or up. This vertical movement, displacement, going up or coming down, is sensed by saccule. Moreover, gravity constantly pulls the macula of the saccule downwards, thereby indicating the acceleration due to gravity or locating where the center of the earth is. The pull of the earth is determined by saccule. So, gravitational pull, the orientation of the head on the neck and the body, translational movement, acceleration, deceleration, these are all sensed by the vestibular apparatus. So, how do the vestibular apparatus pick up the signal? So, you are already familiar with the auditory system. The pickup system of the auditory apparatus are hair cells. You are familiar with them. So, here also we have hair cells enclosed in the membranous cavity as in the auditory system, surrounded by perilimbs, surrounded by fluid known as the perilimb, and we have microvilli coming out from the hair cells, which are immersed or they are drowned in endolimb. So, the structure of a hair cell as before is almost the same. So, endolimb are bathing the microvilli. The microvilli are separated from the hair cell by very tight junction. Please remember, reticular membrane from the auditory apparatus. So similar arrangement here. There is no intermixing of endolymph and perilymph. Endolymph is very high in potassium. This potassium is pumped into the endolymph using power. So it is very high in potassium, and it has been seen that whenever there is a very minute displacement of the microvilli towards the stereocilia, toward one of the orientation of the longer stereocilia, towards the longer stereocilia, there is huge entry of potassium inside the cell. So potassium enters and the cell is depolarized. Now a depolarized cell will release neurotransmitters. These neurotransmitters are picked up by nerves, right? And they lead out from the vestibular apparatus to the nuclei of the eighth nerve, the vestibulococcus. They are the vestibular nuclei in this case. So axons from the cell will lead out to the vestibular nuclei. So this is something which you remember from the auditory system. What is different here is how the structure is managed. So in the utricle and saccule, these hair cells are embedded in a gelatinous mass. They are embedded in a gelatinous body. More importantly and very interestingly, this gelatinous mass contains small stones. So these will confer some amount of inertia to the gelatinous mass. These stones are known as otoconia. This whole thing is the otoconia. The stones are otoliths. Lith being stone, auto referring to ear. So small stones in the ear. They have inertia, and thereby any movement of the head will displace the inertia of these stones, will keep the gelatinous mass here, but the hair cells will move. Thereby, the relative movement of the hair cells with respect to the inertial non-movement of the otoconia embedded gelatinous, otolith embedded gelatinous otoconia will give rise to depolarization and signaling downstream. So this is an arrangement which is found in utricle and saccule. Now what is the arrangement like in the semicircular canal? So suppose this is one semicircular canal, and it will eventually communicate with the utricle. All the three semicircular canal communicate with the utricle. Here, in one of the enlarged ends called the ampulla, you have a structure known as the cupula, a dome-like structure on which the microvilli are embedded. This is a gelatinous structure also, and it is completely closing the aperture. These are the hair cells, and you have nerves leading to the vestibular nuclei. So this is the cupula. Now what happens is that when you turn your head from side to side or front to back, when you pitch, when you yaw, or when you roll, the fluid here, because of its inertia, will displace this cupula. So because of its inertia, it will displace, the cupula will be a little displaced. This displacement of the cupula also displaces the hair cells, thereby either giving rise to hyperpolarization or depolarization and signaling the vestibular nuclei. Please note that when we move our head from side to side and horizontal canals are stimulated, now suppose if I am moving my head to the left side, the fluid in the left horizontal canal, because of its inherent inertia, will remain as it is, but the bony canal is moving along with the membranes in it. So what happens is that the fluid pushes the cupula. Please remember, I am talking about my left horizontal canal. So the fluid, which is in equilibrium, stays at one place, but the membranous canal moves, and the movement of the membranous canal thereby brings the cupula against the inertially inert fluid. So the cupula is pushed in the forward direction, and the left lateral semicircular canal is activated. And what happens to the right semicircular canal? Because the fluid is staying here and the cupula, because I am turning my head, is moving away from the fluid, the cupula is not being deflected to the front, it is being deflected back. So there is hyperpolar. So you get hyperpolarizing signal from the right horizontal canal and depolarizing signal from the left horizontal canal, semicircular canal, and the signal goes to the vestibular nerve and goes to the contralateral sixth cranial nerve nuclei, abducens nuclei, which stimulates the lateral rectus, thereby turning the eyes to the right. Signal from the left, right sixth cranial nerve nuclei now crosses the midline and goes to the oculomotor nerve nuclei on the left, which contracts the medial rectus, thereby helping the left eye to be medially retracted and thereby keeping the gaze focused on the point of attention. These are something which you will recall from the previous class. Now let us try and assimilate the function of the lateral, the semicircular canal, more so the horizontal semicircular canal, with what we have learned previously. How Bohr is brought about. You remember that. That's very easy for you now. So signal from the semicircular canal, more so we are talking about the horizontal semicircular canal, where the movement of the fluid is towards the cupula and the cupula has been displaced to one side. The hair cells have been displaced and thereby stimulating the nerve. So what do you see? You see a lot of action potential generated. So there is a tonic firing when there is no stimulation. As soon as there is stimulation, the number of action potential increases. So there is activation, and this goes to the 8 cranial nerve nuclei, right? Vestibular. And you also know there is immediate crossing over to the other side to supply to the 6th cranial nerve, and the 6th cranial nerve also supplies to the, it crosses the midline and supplies the 3rd cranial nerve, thereby bringing about a stimulation of lateral rectus on one side and medial rectus on the other. So this is all known to you. Now what we are going to do here is to study how BOR is modified. So BOR is when you move your head from side to side, the reflex activity keeps the eye fixed by moving the eyes conjugately to the other side. This is the positive mechanism. There is also a negative feedback mechanism which is to the lateral rectus on this side and medial rectus to the other, thereby keeping them inactive and helping in the conjugate gaze. Now what happens is that for this reflex to be modified or to learn from error of this reflex, we have a circuit which goes into the cerebellum. So the cerebellum is in the loop here. So a fiber from the vestibular nerve nuclei goes to the cerebellum. This fiber is known as the mossy fiber. Mossy fiber. MOSS. So this is one of the component of the cerebellum. This is one of the two input component of the cerebellum. So this goes into the cerebellum through the inferior cerebellar peduncle. The mossy fiber will now synapse with the granule cells. So second being granule, GRANULE, granule cells. Interestingly, the granule cells divides into two long axonal ends, like the wires of a telegraph. We are in the basal gang. We are in the cerebellum. This is cerebellum. So what we are doing? We are trying to understand how cerebellum corrects any error of the BOR, and also further down in other classes we will learn how cerebellum uses this kind of circuit to bring about correction of the smooth pursuit. So mossy fibers, then granule cells. What next? Very importantly, we have now Purkinje cells. cells. Moreover, to these Purkinje cells, we have another inflow. There is only two inflow to the cerebellum, as we have already indicated. First is the mossy fiber inflow, and the other inflow is very importantly through the climbing fiber. Climbing. Where do the climbing fibers come from? They come from inferior olive in the pons. So climbing fibers will be quite adjacent to the Purkinje cells. Now let us look at the tract here. So mossy fibers are stimulating the granule cells. Granule cells are stimulating the Purkinje fibers. They are stimulating the Purkinje fibers. They are stimulating the Purkinje fibers. Purkinje fibers are inhibitory fibers. They are always inhibitory fibers. And where do they synapse? They will synapse on the deep nuclei. They will synapse on the deep nuclei of the cerebellum. There are deep nuclei of the cerebellum, fastigial, then globus, then emboliformis and dentate. Globus and emboliformis together form the interposite nuclei. So there are four deep nuclei. The Purkinje cell will be inhibiting or any of the group of neurons from each the four nuclei. Please also note, while going to the granule cells, the mossy fiber is stimulatory to the deep nuclei. Please also note, while climbing up to the Purkinje cells to be stimulatory, these climbing fibers are stimulatory. They also give a tweak to the deep nuclei. They are stimulatory. So you see, the two input, mossy fiber and climbing fiber, are both stimulatory to the deep nuclei, but indirectly through the ganglion cells here and through the climbing fiber here, which will both stimulate the Purkinje cells. They are indirectly inhibitory to the deep nuclei. Moreover, here there is a presence of inhibitory interneurons, basket cell and stellate cell, which provide self-inhibition and also lateral inhibition on other Purkinje cells. Please also note the other inhibitory interneuron, the Golgi cells. So this is inhibitory. So you see, there are many feedback loops. So here also positive stimulation from mossy fiber, from climbing fiber, but negative stimulation from the Purkinje cell. Now, most interestingly, almost all the output of the cerebellum is through the output of the deep nuclei. But here, in this case, where we are studying VOR, the Purkinje cell will, so Purkinje cell, let's draw another Purkinje cell here. So the Purkinje cell will directly go and inhibit the nuclei, will directly go to the 8 cranial nerve nuclei, the vestibular nuclei, and bring about its inhibition there. So you see, this is a positive stimuli, this is a inhibitory negative stimuli after the cerebellum has processed the information which is received from the 8th cranial nerve and also information from the olive. Now what is the difference between those two information? And it has sent a inhibitory signal or a modulatory, a regulatory signal to the vestibular nuclei so that the movement of the eyeball can be further modified. So on top of the reflex, this is the higher control for modulation. Now what is the higher control for modulation? Why it should be? Because through the inferior olive comes error signals. From where? From the visual system, from vision. So this is VOR happening. There is a reflex for VOR. You are already acquainted with that. On top of that, if the VOR is not doing what it should do, then there is discrepancy between the intended movement and the resultant movement, which is picked up by the eyes. So it is picked up by the eyes. The retinal focus will not be as intended. So there will be error signal which will stimulate the climbing fibers, and the climbing fibers will be depolarizing the Purkinje cell, and the Purkinje cell will go into deep depolarization or long-term depression. So it will be hugely depolarized and it cannot be repolarized very easily. So there will be the long-term depolarization, or the Purkinje cell will not be stimulated by the mossy fiber and the granule cells, the parallel cell pathway. Thereby the signal here will be modified. It's a little complex, but as we go on, we will understand. So this is how the VOR can be modified. These pathways can also be used by other visual reflexes like the smooth pursuit, whereby the smooth pursuit also uses the wheel. So the frontal eye field, the supplementary eye field, they will also involve the basal ganglia, and one of the component of basal ganglia, substantia nigra pars reticularis, will signal to the colliculi, inferior colliculi, which will then signal the bus generator, if you remember from your previous classes, and the saccades will be modified. In the case of smooth pursuit also involves the cerebellum, particularly the vermis, whereas in VOR, the flocculus is involved. In smooth pursuit, the flocculus and the vermis, along with some other intermediate area, is also involved, and the basal ganglia is also involved. Now, These vestibular nuclei also signals downstream. It will form the medial and lateral vestibulospinal tract, whereby innervating the muscles of the neck and thereby keeping them stable and fixed at a position on which the head can perform as an efficient platform for the eyes. So we will end here, and if possible we will continue the basal ganglia and the thalamus in a little more detail.